Hello. Let me see. Hey, hello, guys. Sorry. Please hope you can hear me. If you can hear me, you can just type in the chat if you can hear me. Oh, okay. So I think we are currently 11 here right now. So, oh, okay, Beneza. So we are currently 11 over here. So we can wait for, let's say, an additional 5 minutes so that we can get um, our other colleagues also to come live. Then we can start from there. So it's exactly 7 o'clock now. So when it's 7:05, then we can start. By that time, I'm sure we might have our colleagues or most of our colleagues here. Then we can proceed. All right. Thank you. Okay, guys. I think our number is encouraging now. We are 25 currently, and I think we can proceed. Can we? Okay. So today we are looking at Excel for finance. Okay, and as you can see on the screen, we can see the outline for today. So with the outline, we will be going through um, from the introduction to basic charting. And since we have 2 hours, I'll try as much as possible to cover everything. But if as we go along and there is a question that you need to ask, you can just put it in the chat. I can see it over here. Then I will answer it. If let's say you drop a question and oh, okay, Ebenezer, can we wait for 5 more minutes? Sure, we can. So we can wait for 5 more minutes. So we can just go through the outline while we wait. Then when the 5 minutes is up, then we can proceed or we can start. Okay, okay, Ben. All right, so let's just go through the outline. Okay, so we'll be starting with the introduction to Excel. So with the introduction, we're looking at, I think, what most of us are, or we already know, or we are aware of the meaning of Excel, how the interface looks like, how we can navigate the various interfaces or the interface of Excel, the various menu bars, as well as the rows, the columns. Then we go to basic navigations. All right. So with the basic navigations, we'll be looking at how to, let's say, insert columns and insert rows, how we can name cells, name columns. We also look at how we can also use some keyboard shortcuts to navigate the background or ourselves easily, how we can move within different sheets very easily, and so on. Right. Then we then look at cell referencing. Right. So when it comes to the cell referencing, um, we have the relative referencing and the absolute referencing. So we look at that when we get there. Then we also go ahead and look at data entry and data types. So how we can enter data into Excel, which most of us think we are conversant with. Then we also look at the data types that we have in Excel, ranging from text to numbers to percentages to currency and so on. And we also go ahead and look at basic formatting, basic formulas, basic functions. So with the function, we look at the sum function, the average, the maximum, the minimum, the count function, and the count A function. Then we also move to data validation. So data validation, how we can restrict data entry into cells in Excel, or let's see how we can create drop-down lists. That's if you are entering data, we can just choose from rather than just going ahead and enter data. And it's very important in data entry. So we also look at that. Then we look at sort and filtering data. So with that one, we look at data sorting, look at slices, pivot table, pivot by function, right? Then we look at the lookup function. So the lookup functions, just like most of us know, we have the VLOOKUP, the HLOOKUP, the XLOOKUP, and we also have the get function. So the get function is also a lookup function that we'll be looking at. Then we can look at basic charting, all right, various charts that we can do in Excel. Then if time permits us, maybe we can look at how we can also use AI in Microsoft Excel. All right, so we look at basic AI in Microsoft Excel. So I think I have to add it to the outline. So it's 7:06 now. 7:06 now. So I think we are 31 now. So Eben, I think can we proceed? Can we move on? Or we have to wait for a while? We are 31 now. Okay, so I think we can proceed now. So I'll share my Excel. So kindly hold on. All right. So we'll be looking at Excel for finance, just like we've gone through the outline. So I hope you have the data that we'll be using for this lesson so that you can also practice along whilst we go. Please, do you have the data? I think I shared it with Doc. I don't know if you've gotten it. Otherwise, you can also look at the description. I placed the link over there where you can just follow the link to download the data that we'll be using for today's lesson. All right, so please, do you have the data? Do you have the data? Okay, so I think maybe you have the data. So let me assume you have the data so that. Oh, okay, Libet, no. All right, so kindly check the description. Okay, the description of this live lesson. You see the link over there. You can download from the link over there. Or better still, maybe one of you can just drop your number in the chat, then I'll send it to you through WhatsApp if that's fine. So once we do that, we can go through the theory aspect, then but maybe by the time we are done with the theory aspect, I'll get, or you have the data that we'll be practicing with. Okay. I know when we talk of Microsoft Excel, so Excel is a very powerful tool, right, which is used in finance. In almost every industry or everywhere you find yourself, you are going to need Excel in whatever you do. So having a basic idea of what Excel does and what you can use Excel for is very, very important. Okay. So Excel helps us in organizing data, performing complex calculation, and building models for decision making. So when we have data that we want to maybe make informed decision makings out of it, Excel is a very powerful tool that we can use in doing that. Now, in organizing data, we know the various sorting and filtering options in Excel or functions in Excel helps us very well in doing that. Then we also have various functions that helps us in performing various complex calculation. Now, in building model, Excel is also very good when it comes to using it for data analysis. So we can use it in analyzing data for trends in our data. Maybe if you are dealing with, let's say, the annual reports of a company, we can use Microsoft Excel to perform various horizontal, vertical, or trend analysis to understand the annual reports, okay, or let's say the various lines in the financial statements. Now, we can also use it to perform various regression analysis. So Excel can do a lot of stuff, so you can keep in mind. So Wallace and Wallace 2007 mentioned that Excel proficiency is consistently ranked among the most important technical skills for finance and accounting professional. So just like I said, wherever you find yourself, being it in the financial industry or let's say anywhere, Excel skills is very important and also very demanding. Okay. Now, when we talk of a workbook, so the workbook is a collection of worksheets that we work within in Microsoft Excel. All right. So when you look at this Excel that we are using over here, this is a workbook. All right. So we've opened the workbook with the name practice data. All right. Then we also have various worksheets. So the worksheet, we have the notes worksheet, we have practice area down here in colors over here. We have all data worksheets. So you can see all these worksheets in a workbook. So a worksheet, also known as a spreadsheet, sorry, consists of cells which you can enter data and calculate data, right? So the worksheet consists of cells. And as you know, the cells is where a column and a row meet. So when you can see where I've highlighted is a cell, that's cell P4, right? So that's a cell. Now we move on to the rows and columns. Now rows and columns is something that we already know in Excel, right? So they form the core structure in Excel. So they provide a grid line. So the one with the alphabet A, B, C are the columns, and the rows are from one downwards. Okay. All right. So that's the basic introduction of Excel, and I know most of us have already convenient with that one. All right. Okay. So please, do you have the data now? Not yet. Okay. So let me put the link in the chat. All right, so I've placed the link in the chat. Okay, so you can follow the link too. Okay. All right, so if you don't have the data, I've also placed the link in the chat. All right, so you can click on it and have access to the data. All right, so now we move on to data entry in Excel. Now, data entry. Okay, William. So kindly follow the link that I just placed in the chat to download the data. All right. So when it comes to the data entry, data entry in Excel refers to the process of inputting data into cells in a worksheet. Okay. Now when it comes to the data entry, so let me just come over here. So just entering data into Excel or into cells is known as the data entry. So let's say I want to create a student database. All right. So I can just go ahead and start type. I know that the unique identification of every student is the student ID or the student's index number. So I can go ahead. So maybe I have student ID and I can add a student's name, then maybe their age. All right. So the process of entering this data is a data entry into Excel. Now there are various ways that we can do that. Okay, we can go ahead and start entering our data like this, or we can also use a form. All right, we can create a form in Excel and also use that one for data entry. All right, so we take note of that. Now when it comes to the data types, okay, there are various data types in Excel. All right, so we start with text. So text is a combination of letters, numbers, or symbol not meant for calculations. All right, so if you look at this practice area over here, if you look at this practice over here, we have student data. Okay, so we have student data. All right, so we've entered student data over here. We have the student IDs, their name, and various marks that they scored in various subjects. All right, so from financial reporting, econometrics to auditing. All right, then we have their student ID over here. All right, then the names. So these are various data types that we have. Now, if you look at this over here, the STD001, all right, it's a data type, and that data type is a string or a text. All right, so it's a combination of letters, numbers, or symbol. So example, George Akutu, so that's a name, or let's say account number, sorry, student ID number. So SBACC230026, all right, or yes. So these are text data. Then we also have numbers, all right. So numbers, that's the numeric data that can be used for calculation. So in our practice data, example of numbers is the ones that we see over here, all right. So these are numbers. Then we have date and time. All right, so date and time, just like in our data type, we can see them over here. So if you come over here, here is where we can see the various data types that we have. All right, number, currency, accounting, short dates and long dates. We have the time, percentage, fraction, scientific, and text. So these are the various data types that you can use in Microsoft Excel. All right, okay. So we also have the percentage, the boolean, that's the logical, so true or false, those are the boolean data types. Then we can also enter formulas and error values. All right, so this indicates problems for formulas or data. So we have the common error type that we can have, that's div0. All right, so if you see div0, that error div0 meaning we are dividing something by 0. All right, and we know it, if you are dividing something by 0, that will be an error. Then any, that's value not available. Then the ref, that's invalid cell reference, and so forth and so on. All right, okay. So what we'll be moving on currently is knowing the interface of Microsoft Excel. All right, so knowing the interface. So looking at this interface over here, right, looking at the interface over here, we can see that we have the top here which displays the name of our documents, the practice data. That's our title bar. Okay, then we also have the ribbon over here, which has the menu bar and other buttons over here. All right, so we have various buttons over here that we can use when it comes to formatting, when it comes to formulas. All right, when it comes to, let's say, view data, maybe we want to free some panes, we want to, let's say, deactivate grid lines, the headers, or let's say the formula bar. We can also do this over here. All right, then we have the develop. Maybe with your interface that you are seeing, you might not be seeing the developer over here, but you can, with this one, we can go and uncheck it. I think at our option column over here, but if you don't see it over here, that's fine. And maybe you might not also see the thread and the spreadsheet AI, that's fine. Okay, then we have the name box over here. All right, so the name box shows the name of the cell that we select. So you can see right now we have A1, and that's where you can see the student data, and it changes to the name of the cells when we move to a different active cell. So you can see that over here. Then there's our formula bar where, so you can see formula bar where, let's say if we enter any data or any formula, you'll be seeing it over here. All right, then this will be our work area where we'll be seeing our various cells, our rows, and our columns. Then this shows the various sheets within the workbook. Okay, so I just assigned tab colors to them. It's nothing. You can just change it to the plain one. That's fine. Okay, now when it comes to navigating around the Excel interface, or let's say your Excel sheets, it's also very important. Okay, so for example, if we are dealing with large data, all right, so let's just use this practice data over here. If we are dealing with these data, we can see that we have empty rows in them, empty rows that we might not even need. Or let's say if there is a need for us to maybe add another, let's say another subject, maybe before the com skills or after the com skills, then we can go ahead and insert a new column, right? And in doing that, we can just bring our cursor up here to the E and tap on it to highlight that column, all right, to highlight that column. Or better still, we can use either control space bar to highlight the row, sorry, shift space bar to highlight the row, or control space bar to highlight the column. All right, so you can take note of that. Either ways, you can just bring your cursor to the top of the column you want to select and just click on it. If it changes to the arrow down, or if you don't want that, you can just select an active cell, and if you want to select that column, we can hold control space bar to select that column, and if you want to select the row, we can hold shift space bar to select that row. All right, so that's also one way of inserting charts, sorry, of highlighting rows and columns in your data. Now if you want to insert chart, we can select where we want to insert the chart. Now if we select economics or column D, right, and we right click, we can have the option to insert a new column. All right, so we can just click to insert a new column, and it inserts to the left, so you take note of that one also. Now if you want to insert a row, we can also do the same. All right, but when dealing with large data sets, it's always very important to work effectively, all right, to get things done in effective way. So instead of just highlighting and right clicking to select insert, you can just select the column, you hold your control shift, then you hit your plus sign to just insert a new column, and you can do same for the row, control shift plus to insert a row. If you want to delete, you just select the row you want to delete and you hold control minus. You can do same for the column also. All right, now still on navigating or basic navigating your interface, or let's say moving around cells and sheets. Now you can see over here that we also have various sheets over here, right, that we'll be working with in our lesson. Now whenever, let's say, I want to go to a new sheet, right, I just have to bring my cursor down and click on it to move to a new tab or a new sheet. So one thing you can use, you can use your control page down and up to also move within the sheet, right? So control up takes me to notes, control page up takes me to notes, control page down also takes me forward through the sheets. All right, so that's one thing you can also keep in mind to be able to work a little faster within your data. All right. Now we can also look at adjusting, let's say, the width, the column width and the row width in within your data. So let's say we shrink these we shrink these columns so that the data overlaps. So let's say we have a data like this. We have something like this. So we can see that we are not even seeing the full names over here. So with the first one, I'm seeing Elizabeth, but I don't see the Martinez, but I know that the full name is Elizabeth Martinez, which is over here. All right, which is over here. That's in the formula bar. So with that one also, one thing you can also do is that you can select, let's say, I can select the first row. All right, I can select the first row like this. So in doing that, you can also use, you can double tap and drag, or you can just hold Control Shift, then the arrow key right to select everything. All right, and that's very effective. You are dealing with, or you have a row with a lot of data. Okay, then with that you can just hold your Alt. So you hold, sorry, you hold Alt HOI. All right, then you can see that we've adjusted the column width based on this row, right? The entries in the first row or in row 2. All right, and if we want to do the same thing for the columns also, we can also use Alt HOA to also do that. So you keep those in mind, because as we go ahead, we also be needing that when we are dealing with other we are dealing with sorry, we are dealing with um other lessons, let's say with our basic functions or with the lookup functions. All right, now another important thing we can also look at is searching for data in Excel or within our data. All right, so for example, if we want to maybe locate the com skills marks for, let's say, students with index number 25. Okay, then with index number 25. Now it will be very difficult, or if not difficult, getting the data will be a little um cumbersome, because immediately we scroll up, we can see that we don't even know which one or which of the columns is for econometrics or for auditing. All right, so we always have to scroll up to come and look at the headers before we can scroll down to look at those values. So one thing we can also do, or what that one also brings us, it's freezing panes. A way of, let's say, making some rows start still showing. All right, so in doing that, we can see the freeze pane on our view tab over here. So we go to the menu bar, you see view, and you come under the window over here, you see freeze panes. All right, so freeze panes freeze a portion of your sheet to keep it visible while you scroll the rest of the data. So with this one, if I want to freeze the first two rows, what I'm going to do is that I'll select the third, and I come to freeze panes and I hit freeze pane. So you can see that when I scroll through my data, my first two rows has been freezed, right? And it's not moving. And this can help me to locate the com skills mark of students with index number 25 very easily, which is this. All right. Now, another thing to make it also very visible is that immediately we select the active cells, we can have the active column and the active row also selected. All right, and we can also do that using the focus over here, the focus cell over here. All right, so this also helps us to highlight the column and row of the active cell we are working in. All right, so let's see what happens if I click on it. So when I click on focus cell, right, you can see that immediately I select the com skills marks for students with index number 25, the column where the com skills is and the row where I can find the students is selected. All right, so let's see what happens if I select a different one. All right, it moves along. So that's how we can also focus the cells that we are working with for easy visibility. And with this one, we can also go ahead and change, let's say, the colors if we want. All right, so you can change it to any color that you prefer. All right, and that's how we can also freeze pane. So we can freeze panes and also focus on or highlight active column and active rows. So let me just um, undo the focus cell. All right. Now, another thing that we'll be needing when we go forward is how to name cells, all right? So we can give a specific name to a cell so that we're making reference to that cell becomes very easy, all right? And even in advanced works, if we want to, let's say, create a hyperlink to it, it will be very, very simple, right? So in doing that, we can just select, let's say, I want to give a name to the financial reporting range. I can select the whole range. Sorry, I can select the whole range and give it a name over here. So I come to the name box and I can change it to, let's say, FR, to FR, right? Now, immediately I click enter, I can see that I've given a name to this range over here, all right? So let's say if we want to sum everything over here, all right? So we want to sum everything over here. Instead of using equal to sum, then we use maybe C3 to maybe C50 or C51. We can use equal to sum, then we can just refer it to the range name that we gave because we just created a name for that range, right? So we also do it. We also be using those ones when we move forward. Now, another thing I want us to also look at is cell referencing. Okay. Now, cell referencing is very important when it comes to Excel. All right. So the when we talk of cell referencing, okay, is a way of, let's say, so when it comes to cell referencing, we have two types. We have the relative referencing and the absolute referencing, right? Now we talk of when we are dealing with the absolute referencing, what we are doing is that we want to, let's say, lock a cell, all right, so that if we apply formulas to a cell, we want to drag it to different cells, it will do so without any mistakes. And in doing so, we can use the F4 key to do that. All right. So for example, if I want to maybe let's just use an example over here. So let's say if I want to perform an absolute referencing over this, what we can do is without using the F4, we can just introduce the dollar sign in front. When you introduce the dollar sign in front of each, what we are doing is that we are locking the column H. And if we are to drag, let's say, in the formula that we are writing over here to other cells, the H or the column H will remain constant without it moving, right? So the data we'll be looking at will be in only column H. And if we introduce another one in front of the row number, right, what it means is that we've logged that particular cell, right? We've logged that particular cell, and if we are dragging through to apply to a formula in other cells, we are just going to focus on that particular cell without it moving to other cells. So I think with this one, we get to understand it more when we are dealing with or we are using it in other lessons or in other cells that we'll be working with. All right. So we take note of that one also. All right. So with this, we'll be moving to some basic formatting that we can also do within our data. Okay. Now, when it comes to formatting, we know that even in Microsoft Word, we have some basic formatting that we used to do. All right. So one thing I left out, let me just hide the ribbon so that we can at least have a large work area that we can see large of our data. And doing that, I can just come up here and double click on, let's say, on the home or any of the menu or any of the items on the menu bar. Or better still, I can just use sorry, I can use Control F2 to do that. Sorry, Control F1 to also do that. So I can just use it to hide my ribbon. Okay. So in performing some basic formatting, some basic formatting that we know about the bold, we know about italize, we know about underline. Then we can also change, let's say if we are dealing with a data that we want to change it to caps, all caps, in Microsoft Word, we can also do that. Then in Microsoft Excel too, we have a formula or let's say a function that we can also use in performing such basic formatting. All right, so I intentionally create, you can see with this name, okay, I intentionally added I mixed up the upper case and the lower case within this name so that we can use those as an example. All right, so let me just bring the student data over here. Sorry, the student name. Now with the student name, just like in Microsoft Word, you can just use Control B for the bold, Control I for italize, and Control U for underline, just in Microsoft Word. All right. But in Microsoft Excel, we don't have anything like that of Microsoft Word where we can just go to uppercase and click on uppercase to change this to uppercase. Or let's say um, we can capitalize each word. In Excel, to be able to capitalize each word, we can use the proper function. Okay. So in doing that, we can just use equal to proper. All right, the proper function. Then we select where the text is. We close our bracket. Then you can see that we've capitalized each word for Joseph Johnson. All right, so you can see it over here. So we've just transformed this with a mixed uppercase and lowercase to capitalize each word. Then here say if you want to make everything in caps, all right, and that one we can use the upper function. All right, we can use the equal to upper. All right, so let's say we want to do that for Karen Lopez, and you can see that also. Then if you want to convert, let's say this to, let's say, a lowercase, we can also use the lower function. All right, so we have the proper, we have the lower function for lowercase. Then we have the upper for uppercase. Then the proper to capitalize each word. All right, okay. So we move forward to some basic formulas in Excel. All right, some basic formulas in Excel. I mean that you'll be doing that in the basic calc sheet. All right, so this sheet over here. So you can go to this sheet and we can do that over there. But please, if you have any question, you can just drop in the comment section. If you have any question, so that we can address it before we move forward, or anything you want me to clarify, you can also put that in the comment section. Okay. So as we go along, I'll be checking the comment section so that I'll address any question if anything of that sort comes up. All right. So with the basic functions that we'll be looking at just in our outline, given a range of data and we want to look at, let's say, the highest value, that will be the maximum, that the maximum value. The maximum value. So with that one, you'll be using the max function. All right. Or the maximum function. Then if we are looking at the minimum value, we'll be looking at the main function. And we also look at the sum function. All right. So as we go along, we'll be looking at those ones also. Okay. Now with the basic calculations that we'll be dealing with, in Excel, it's very important to look at the syntax for writing a formula or, let's say, a function. And we know that in Excel, in writing a formula, it's very, very important to always remember that every formula starts with an equal to sign for Excel to know that you are writing a formula, right? Otherwise, it will just be assumed that it's a text or, let's say, data that you're just entering in this data or in this cell over here. All right. Now we have this data over here, right? So it's a little bit scrambled, but we'll just be assigning the right data types to it. Then we can go ahead and perform some basic arithmetic functions with it. All right. So with this one, we can see that the the values under the January or under the month. All right. You come to the data type the data type area is general. So we can change it to number, right? And in doing that, we can just select where those data are located or where the data is located. All right. So in doing that, I'll select all the data using Control Shift arrow key to my right and arrow key down to select everything. I'll just hit Control Shift 1 to change everything to number over here, right? Or better still, you can just come up here under the number and you can change it to number over here. Okay. All right. Now, in situations where we also want to reduce, the decimal points, we can also come here and reduce the decimal points as usual. All right. Now, let's say if we are dealing with percentages also, we can also use the Control Shift 5 to change everything to percentages. All right. So we take note of those ones also. Now, what we are going to do currently is that we are going to perform some basic calculations over here, right? Using let's say our plus, our minus, and our division. That's arithmetic operators. So with that, we are going to pull out the data using or pull out the data from our all data sheets. All right. Now, in this sheet, what we are going to do is that we know that when it comes to quarters in a year, right, there are 4 quarters in a year. All right. So with the quarters, we know quarters is for January to March. So quarter one is January to March, quarter two, April, May, June, quarter three, July, August, September, then quarter four, October, November, December. All right. So with that, we can go ahead and compute or enter a formula to compute the quarters based on the data that we have over here. And in doing so, just like I said, every function or every formula has to start with an equal to sign. All right. So I enter equal to. All right. Now what I want to do is that I want to add, but I don't want us to use the sum function. So let's just use the arithmetic operator, just plus. All right. So I can open my bracket. Then I come to my all data tab over here. All right. Then I come to my January. I know I'm adding January. All right. Then my plus February plus March. Okay. Then I can close my bracket. All right. Then after closing my bracket, I hit enter. Then I can get the values over here. So with this formula, the reason why you are seeing this over here is because we are pulling out the data or E2. So we want to pull out the data in E2 from this sheet, the old data sheet. All right, that's why you are seeing this over here. If it was to be in this same sheet, we wouldn't have seen this over here. You'd just be seeing E2 plus F2 plus G2, right? So I just hit enter, right? And I can just double tap this to autofill the remaining. All right, so you can see it over here. And we can also do same for the quarter two, quarter three, and quarter four. Now with the quarter two, so let's just do the quarter two, then we can also move on to how we can work with the other arithmetic operators. Okay. Oh, okay, David. All right. Well noted. So I'll slow down, but kindly prompt me if I'm still going fast. Okay. All right. Okay. So with the quarter two, all right. So David, is there, let's say, a place where you didn't get me well so that I can also take that again? So you let me know. Okay. All right. So for, let's say, with the quarter two also, we can also do the same, right? So over here, I can just hit my equal to for Excel to know that I'm entering a formula. And I open my bracket. Okay. Then I come to my all data tab. Sorry, my all data sheet over here. And I know that my quarter two or the second quarter in a year starts from April to June. So I select April plus May plus June. Okay, and I can close that one also, and I hit enter. Then I get that sorry, I get that for quarter two also, and I can double click to get the rest of the data over here. Right, and I can also do same for quarter three. But in quarter three, what I want us to do is that instead of using the arithmetic operator plus, I want us to use the sum function. I want us to use the sum function. Now, with the sum function, instead of us just using the h2 plus i2 plus g2, the sum function helps us in this way. So equal to, then we can just go ahead and enter our sum function. All right, then we come to our data. Now with the third quarter, all right, I know my third quarter is from, sorry, my third quarter is from July to September. All right, so I can just select July through to September. All right, and I can just close and I hit enter. All right, then I get this over here. All right, I get that for quarter three, and that's how you can also use the sum function. Now you can see that we are getting error over here because the formula in this cell refers to a range that has additional numbers adjacent to it. All right, so with this one, mostly if we are dealing with large data like this where we can be facing such error, we can also use the if error function in addition to the sum function to take care of this. Okay, but let's just ignore it and we can go ahead with it. So with this one, I can also bring my cursor down here, and when it changes to the plus sign, I can double tap on it for it to fill, just like that. All right. David, I hope my pace now is okay. I hope I'm not moving that fast. All right. So now let's also look at the quarter four. All right. So the quarter four too, we use the same method, and we can also get the values for quarter four. Now, let's say one fast way we can also do that is that we can copy the formula in quarter three. All right, you can copy the formula in quarter three into quarter four. We can just make some small editing to it. All right, so I can copy this formula over here. All right, then I paste it over here. Sorry, I can just copy and I paste it over here. I can see that immediately I paste over here, I'm getting the same value. Sorry, I'm getting different value over here, but I have to make sure that the columns which are over here are those of, let's say, quarter four, are those of quarter four. So to do that, I can come here and look at where my quarter four values are. So I know that my quarter four starts from October to column P. All right, so I can come back and make some editing to it. All right, now if you are dealing with, let's say, if you highlight a cell and want to edit the cell, all right, you can just double click on the active cell, or you can hit F2. All right, so that you can also edit the value in the cell. So just like we know that our columns is from October to December, is from column N to column P. So I can come here and edit. So I know it's from column N to column P, and I hit enter to get the values. Okay, and I can just double tap to fill. Now, another way that we can do that without using, let's say, NP to this and that to that to that, we can create names for, let's say, the various quarters. All right, we can create names. So for example, over here, I can just select the range of data for January and I give it a name, maybe January. So maybe Jane, enter. And I'll do the same for February. All right, I know this is February. Then I can do the same for March. So to highlight everything in March, you select the first one, you hold your Control Shift, then arrow key down. All right, so arrow key down to select everything. Then, oh, sorry. So my arrow key down, select everything, and I can come here and give it a name. What I'm doing is I'm naming the range, right? So that in subsequent lesson or in the subsequent one, when I'm entering the formula, I'll just refer to the range name that I've given instead of just coming back to highlight everything again or using the cell or the range numbers. So I know here is March, so MAR, enter. Okay. Now if I come here, all right, so let me just insert a new column over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to insert a new column after Q1. All right, so I'll select F2, I hold my Control Shift and my plus sign. All right, so this is, let's say, new Q1, and here I want to use the range names. What I'm going to do is I just type equal to sum, then into brackets. All right, immediately I hit into brackets. Now what I'm going to do is that I'll just type the name that I gave to the January range, right? And I know that one is Jane. So immediately I type, you see it over here, right? Sorry. So January, okay, plus, then the next one is February. So February, then my next one is March. So you can see it over here, all right? Sorry. So you can see those ones also over here. So I'm using the sum function, so I can't be bringing the plus, so I'll just have to use my comma. So please take note of that one also. Okay. Okay. Oh, sorry. All right. So I think there is a mistake over here. Let's correct it over here. So with the name range, okay, what I'm going to do is that I'll give the name range to just the first one. All right. And with that, that's going to work. Okay. All right. So what I did currently is that if let's say you want to sum that of January, that's where the one I'm doing is going to work. That's when it's going to work. Okay. All right. So we take note of that also. Okay. Oh, okay. So the next one we are going to move to is that we are going to look at some basic functions. Okay. Some basic functions. All right. So the basic functions that we are going to look at, I think even with doing the Q2 and Q3, we've looked at some of them. All right. So we just go to the basic function sheet over here. All right. And this is the data that we're going to use for the basic function. All right. Now with this, we are going to calculate. We have daily stock prices for certain stocks on the Ghana Stock Exchange. Okay. And what we are going to do with this data is that we want to look at the maximum, all right, over the period that we are looking at. So we are looking at the period from February, sorry, 2nd January 2020 down to 31st December 2024, right? So we want to look at, let's say, the daily high and the daily low. So maybe we are looking at the maximum stock price of MTN or the highest that MTN price hit for this period. So in doing that, we use the equal to max function. Okay, equal to max. So as you can see over here, it returns the largest value in a set of values. It ignores logical values and text. All right, so we looked at logical values and it also ignores text. All right, so into brackets. Now what we are going to do is that we select the range for MTN. So what we are going to do is that you click on the first cell containing the daily price of, sorry, on 2nd January 2020. You hold your control shift arrow key down to select everything. All right, then you can close your bracket and you can hit enter. So immediately I do that and hit enter, you can see it over here. All right, now you take note of something. If you come to the formula bar over here, all right, you can see that you are not seeing the range. Let's say cell B2 is to cell, let's say B500. What you are seeing over here is a range name given to MTN. All right, that's the name given to MTN. So let's see what happens if, sorry. All right, so let's look at what happened for Bob also. Now if you want to look at the max or the maximum price for Bob within the data, okay, just use the same formula, equal to, then into brackets, sorry, equal to max into brackets, then we select the data range for Bob. All right, then we close the bracket and we hit enter. Now with that, you can see that you are seeing 25.26 over here. But if you look at the formula bar over here, okay, what you are seeing in the formula bar over here is that it's equal to max into brackets. C3 is to C1228. All right. But if you look at that of MTN, what we are seeing is equal to max into brackets MTN range. All right. So with this one, we've created a name for the range. All right. So this is how we did it. So let's say we want to do same for total. If I come to total, I can select the whole range, then I give it a name. Let's say total, let's say, let me just use prices, total prices, okay, and I hit enter. So I've now given a range name to it. So if I want to compute the maximum for total, I'll just enter equal to, then the max into brackets. Now over here, instead of coming here to select the whole range, I've already given a name range to it, and it's very useful to do that because it helps us to work a little faster, because we will not be coming here to select the data. We just start typing the name that we give, which was total prices. All right, which is this total underscore prices. And I can go ahead and close it. You can see that immediately I enter total underscore prices, automatically we can see the prices or the total price range has been highlighted over here, and I can hit enter to get the max. Okay, all right. But in using each of these formula, it comes with its own advantages and disadvantages. Right. So one advantage of using the name range, just like the MTN underscore range over here, is that it helps you to okay, so it helps you to work a little faster without you coming here to select let's say the range over here. You have already defined the range. But in Benzo, we can see that we are using the range over here. Right? One advantage of using the range is that immediately we compute for one, we can go ahead and drag through to get that of the other ones, which is not a property of using the name range. All right, so you take note of that one. So let's see that one would have been. So for example, with this, what I would have done is that I can just come here and use some how do you call it, referencing. All right, to do that, and I can go ahead and drag through. All right, so if I drag through, you can see that I'm getting the values for the other ones also. But with the name range, let's look at what happens if we drag through. I see that if we drag through, we are getting the same thing for all the other shares, which is not right. Right. So what happens with the name range is that it's just like using an absolute referencing. All right. So let me just go back. So right. So these are so when it comes to the name range, just like using an absolute referencing within the cell range. So with that, so let's try with that of Bob. Okay. So let me just increase it. So let's try with that of Bob. Over here, I can just go ahead and introduce absolute referencing. So I hit my F4 to lock everything, all right, and I hit enter. You can see that I'm getting the same value, but when I drag through, right, I'm getting the same figures for all the stocks, which isn't right. Okay, so we take note of that one also. All right, so with the minimum also, we use the function equal to min. So equal to min. So with this one returns the value, the smallest value in the set of the smallest number in the set of values, and it ignores logical values and text. Okay, so the min, then I can go ahead and with this one I've already given a name range, a defined name for MTN. So I'll go ahead and type my MTN underscore range. Sorry, and I can just close it and hit enter, and I also get the minimum, right? And I can also do same for the rest. So you can also take time and compute the minimum for the rest of the stock, since you already have the data with you. Okay, now we also move on to the count function. All right, now the count function is also a basic function in Excel. All right, so it helps you count values within a range. All right, within a range. So the count function, what it does, it counts only numbers, right? Data types which are numbers. So with that one also, we use the equal to count function. All right, so it counts the number of cells in range that contains numbers. All right, so if within the range there are, let's say, text, there are let's say logical values, there are errors, those ones will be counted. So you take note of that one. So you can also count that of MTN. So you have that of MTN range. All right, that's 516. All right, then we have the count A. What the count A does is that it counts numbers and even text. Okay, so when it comes to the count A, so it counts the number of cells in the range that are not empty. So with the count A, once the cell range or the cell contains a value, being it text, being it logical values or anything, all right, what happens is that it counts them. All right, so you take note of that one, and you also take note of when to use the count and the count A function. All right, that's also very, very important. All right, so that's the count A function. So that one, the same MTN range. So MTN, so we already created a defined name for it, 576, right? Just like the count function. Now let's go ahead and manipulate the data. All right, so here I want to see the headers, so I can go ahead and freeze the pane over here. All right, so over here I want to, let's say I want to change this one to, let's say, Eben. Now immediately I change it to Eben, you can see what happens over here. You can see that the count has reduced, but the count A remains the same. The reason being that the count, just like we said, it counts only numbers. Now this over here, if you come to this place over here, you can see that it is seen as a text. All right, it's seen as a text. That's why you can see 575. Now let's see what happens if we create more text. So let me just duplicate all these. You can see that the count value continues to shrink. All right, the count value continues to shrink, but the count A remains intact. If we even go ahead and delete some values, all right, if we go ahead and delete, you can see that the so I go ahead and delete. You can see that now the count function remains the same, but the count A has reduced. The count A has reduced is that it has reduced because, just like we said, with the count A, okay, it counts cells that are not empty. But over here, we can see that these ones are empty. All right, so we take note of that. Okay, then we can also use the sum function, just like we saw it when we were dealing with computing the quarters over here. All right, so we take note of those ones also. All right, so I think so I'll let you compute the other ones over here. So let me just go ahead and compute the average. Then I'll let you compute that of the maximum, the minimum, the average, the count and count A for the Bob total access ETI and goal shares. All right, so with this one equal to average. Now what the average does is that the average computes the arithmetic mean. All right, it computes the arithmetic mean. So with this one, we are computing it for that of MTN range. All right, then we can just hit enter. Then we get the average. All right, we can go ahead and reduce the number of decimal points if you want to. We can do that over here. We can do that over here. So we take note of that also. All right. So please, is there any question up to this point? I will let you. I will leave the other ones to you so that I can also compute the minimum, the average, the count for the other stocks. All right. Please, is there any questions so far before we move to the lookup functions? So if you have any question, you can just drop it in. You can just drop it in the comment section. Then we take it from there. All right. So I'll move on to the lookup functions. All right, the lookup function. But before that, I want us to look at one thing I left out. So that's the data validation. All right, because we also need it in. We will need it in the when we are dealing with the lookup functions. All right. Now, when we talk of data validation, okay, what data validation does is that it restricts or it helps in restricting data entry into, let's say, a cell. All right, so it's a feature that allows you to control what you type into a cell. Now, the reason for data validation is that it helps us to improve data accuracy and consistency, right, by setting rules or criteria for cell inputs. So we give a restriction to as to what one can enter into a cell, right? And it's very important because it helps us to restrict data entry. It provides a drop-down list that you can choose from, right? And even if, let's say, you enter a wrong input or a wrong data into the cell, you can even get an error alert as to what to do next or how you can resolve that issue. All right. Now, what I'm going to do is that we are going to use this data over here. We use we use this over here to create a data validation. All right, so let me just go ahead, data validation. Okay, so now the data validation can be seen, sorry. Now, the data validation can be seen under the data tab over here on the menu bar. All right. So let's say we want to create the drop down list over here. We want to create a drop down list in cell I-21. In cell I-21. Okay. Now, what we are going to do is that we'll come to our data tab over here. All right, on our menu bar. All right. Then we go under data tools. So under data tools, we can see data validation over here. All right, data validation, it's over here. Then we can click on it, select data validation. Then we get the data validation pop-up menu. All right, we get the data validation pop-up menu. Then we can select the validation criteria. Now, when the validation criteria allows any value, it means that you can enter anything you like into the cell. However, in this situation, we want to create a drop-down list. Okay, and there are two ways of doing that. So we can just click on this arrow, the drop-down arrow over here, and select list. Now, if I select this, I have the option to either type the list, or better, let's say, select a range of lists within the worksheet or a different worksheet. So over here, I want to create a drop-down list for maybe date. All right, so I can go ahead. I can go ahead and select the date. Sorry, let me just minimize it. So I can select the date from here down to here. All right, now you can see that I've selected the source of the list over here. Now if I go to input message over here, okay, what the input message does is that it shows a pop-up message on that cell. So anytime I select that cell, it tells me what to do. All right, so maybe I want to input a message that maybe select from drop down list. So maybe select from drop down list. So select date. All right, then error alert. So with the error alert, what we are doing is that anything someone enters, anything apart from what we want the person to do, it should just stop the person from entering that data. However, there are other options that you can go with. You can go with a warning or information. All right, but if you don't want anyone to, let's say, enter anything apart from what you need, you can just use the stop and you hit OK. Now, immediately we hit OK, what happens in the cell where we created the data validation is that, so when you come here, we created the data validation over here. Where did we create it? Oh, okay, so I'm not seeing it, so let me just do it again. Now, with the first instance, what we did was to come to our data and come under data tools and select it. All right, now it's very, so just like from the beginning, I've always tried for us to do everything very effectively. All right, so what we are going to do now is that we just use the keyboard shortcut to just get the data validation pop-up menu. So that is going to give us Alt A V V. All right, so Alt plus A plus V plus V. All right, so this will give you the data validation pop-up menu. All right, so equal to, sorry, so I just select the cell where I want to create a drop down list, then I hold my Alt AVV, then I get this over here, then I restrict this to just only list. Okay, all right, then I select the list source. So this is my list source. All right, then my input message. All right, so by error alert, I can go ahead and hit OK. Now immediately I do that, you can see over here that we have a drop down list over here. All right, and that's how the data validation works. So we have a drop down list for the days that we can choose from. Okay, All right. So the reason why I wanted us to include this before we move on to the lookup function is that we will need it when we go ahead, so that it won't be a new thing. Okay. All right. So as it stands now, I'm not seeing any question in the chat. So I assume we are all okay. All right. So I'll move ahead to the lookup functions. And the lookup function that we'll be looking at, we have the VLOOKUP, the HLOOKUP, and the XLOOKUP, right? Now the HLOOKUP, sorry, the VLOOKUP is a horizontal, the VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup, all right? So the VLOOKUP is a vertical lookup. What it does is that it looks up values vertically within a data range, all right? It looks up range data vertically within a data range. And the reason why the lookup function is very important is that, let's say we are dealing with a lot of data. So looking at this data we have down here, we have about 300 data points. Okay, 300 data points. And if we are told, or let's say you're working with the data and you have a supervisor or a friend who wants to know, let's say, the revenue we gain from a transaction with transaction ID T0280, right? Then what we'll do is that we have to scroll or look for transaction T028, then trace it to the revenue that we generated from it. So in that situation, the revenue will be 5,232.24, right? Which isn't very effective, because if we are dealing with, let's say, thousands of data sets, this becomes very, very difficult. Okay, so we take note of that one also. All right. So with the VLOOKUP, the first thing we are going to look at is that, so let me insert some sheets over here, sorry, some rows over here. And I hope you know how to insert the rows. You just select the row, then Control Shift plus or Control Shift equal to sign, insert a new row for us. So what I'm going to look up is that I want to look up the transaction ID. So that's the unique, let's say, unique ID to all the transactions. So always our lookup value should be unique to the data, right? So for example, if you are dealing with student data, we know that student index numbers are unique to each student. So we'll use that our student as our lookup value. So here I'll use my transaction ID. So my trans ID as the lookup value. And now I want to look up the date. I want to look up the date. So I want to look up the whole details of the transaction. Okay. So let me just perform some small formatting over here. Okay. Okay. All right. So now we have this over here. And what we want to do is that we want to pull up, let's say, the whole transaction for a specific transaction ID. All right. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to first, let's say, create a data validation for all the transaction ID so that I can get a drop down list that I can choose from. So in doing that, just like what we just did for the data validation, I'll just hold my Alt, then AVV, and I'll get my data validation pop-up menu, and I come to settings over here. Now my validation criteria, I want to change it to list. Okay, then with the source, this is the source, that will be the whole transaction ID. Okay, then I click on OK. Now immediately I click on OK, you can see that when I come here, right, I have this small arrow over here that I have the list of transaction IDs over here. Then meaning I can choose from any of it. All right, I can choose from any of it. Now, what I want to do is that I want to create a VLOOKUP function so that anytime I look up a specific transaction ID, I get the transaction details up here. All right. So what I'm going to do is that, so just like as always, you enter your equal to, then your VLOOKUP comes. So VLOOKUP into brackets. Now your lookup value. So the lookup value will be the unique ID for every transaction, all right, or the unique value for every transaction. And in our instance, that's the transaction ID, all right. Then what we are going to do is that we hold Control F4, right, to apply absolute reference, or to lock the cell. Then we hit comma. Now the table array that we are looking from, so this is the table array that we are looking from. We select the whole table, right? So just like I said, you select the first cell in the table array, you hold Control Shift, arrow key to your right, arrow key to your left, select everything. And then I can also hold F4 to lock the table array, comma. Now the column index number that we are looking for. All right. Now in this instance, our column index number will come to our table array, right? Now in the range that we've selected, the transaction ID over here, this place will be 1, then 2, column 3, column 4, column 5, column 6, column 7, column 8, and column 9. All right. So in this instance, we want the date. All right. So the date is in column 2. So I enter 2, then comma. All right. Now in this instance, we want an approximate match, because if let's say we want to use we want an exact match, right? Because we want it to return the transactions for that of transaction ID T0096. So we can either enter false, so you can use false, or we can just enter 0, right, for exact match. Then we can close our bracket and hit enter. Immediately I hit enter, you can see that the date, right, the date that the transaction T0096 took place was 27th October 2024, right? Yes, please. So I think, yes, there will be a recorded version. I think so. All right. So I think after the live video, you can get the option to watch it again. All right. But it's also very important to be with us here so that you can ask any question if you don't understand anything. All right. So back to our VLOOKUP. So now we have the date function over here. All right. So that's how we can look up the date function. But in this instance, we are not looking up just the date function. All right. What we are looking at is that we are looking up the other, how do you call it? The other transactions over here. So we want to know the customer, we want to know the region that this transaction took place, we want to know the product, even the revenue. All right. So previously, what you could have done is that, or what most people do is that you can just copy this whole formula. All right. Oh, sorry. So what most people do is that you copy this whole formula. All right, they copy this whole formula and just change the column index number. Okay, and just change the column index number, which isn't appropriate. But the best thing we could do is that we can enter multiple column index numbers. All right, so this is how we do that also. So just the same function, equal to VLOOKUP into brackets, then the lookup value, that's our transaction ID over here. Then I lock it. Then my table array, I select my table array over here, and I hit F4 to lock it also. Then my column index number, in this instance, we want to enter multiple column index. All right, so what we have to do is that we have to introduce a curly bracket. All right, then we enter the various column index number. So here we want to look at column 2 for date, 3 for customer, 4 for region, 5 for product, 6 units sold, 7 units price, 8 revenue, and even 9 for sales rep, right? And I can close my curly brackets. Now all these we've entered over here, all right, are the various column index numbers. So instead of just doing it individually, we can just enter everything together. Then my comma comes, then exact match. So exact match is 0, and I can close it and hit enter. All right, so you can see that I have these over here. So the lookup function has provided these ones over here for us. Okay, now let's look at what happened. So now let's say we want to look up, let's say, a transaction let's say T10. All right, I can come over here and just search for T10, or better still, I can edit this. So T00, sorry. So I can just T00 10. So you can see that as you type, you get a drop down list over here, then you can just choose from them. Immediately you select the transaction ID, everything over here changes to appropriate ones for the said transaction ID. All right, so you can see it over here. Immediately we change it, the rest of the data also changes. So let me just use one, then we can compare. So with one transaction ID one, which is over here, right? You can see it. Okay, so let me highlight it. So you can see that with this one, our transaction ID is one, the date just like the one we looked up over here, the name Jason Arnold, then the region of the product is laptop, then the unit, so then revenue in that order. All right, so that's how we can also use the lookup function. Now another way of using the lookup function is that we can also use the lookup function to look up for the customers or the customer to whom this transaction ID belongs to. All right, and in doing so we can also go ahead and type equal to VLOOKUP, then VLOOKUP into bracket. Now the lookup value we are looking for is transaction ID. Now in this instance, this is where you have to also be very mindful of the absolute referencing we use. With this one, I want to be able to drag through, right, through the transaction ID. So what I'm going to do is that I'll just introduce the dollar sign in front of the K, meaning I'm locking the column. All right, so what you have to do is that you can just tap on your F4 3 times to get that of the K. All right, comma, then the table array that I'm looking for, I want to look it up in this table array, so I'll select this table array. All right, then I lock it, my comma. Now the column index number that I'm looking for, now if you come to this table, where can I find the column? All right, the customer. All right, so the customer is in column 1, 2, 3. So I can see it in 3. When I come here, my column index number 3, comma, then I want an exact match, and I can close it, hit enter. Immediately I hit enter, I can see I get the customer name, which is Jason Arnold over here. Now to get the rest of the customer name for the other transaction, I can bring my cursor down here and I can double tap to get the rest of the customer names. All right. Please, any question, if you have any question on the VLOOKUP, kindly drop it in the comment section so that I can look at it and address it accordingly. Now the next one you'll be looking at is the HLOOKUP, right? Now while the VLOOKUP looks within the data vertically, the HLOOKUP looks within the data horizontally, just like how the name goes, the HLOOKUP, horizontal lookup. All right, so with that one, I'll also use one example to explain that one also. Now with the HLOOKUP, we have this data over here. So this data is a transpose of what we used over here. All right, now to be able to get that data, I can just copy this data and paste it as a transpose. All right, so we have that paste option in Excel, so you take note of that. So over here, what we are going to do is that, so let me create, or better still, let me bring it down here. All right, so using the transaction ID, I want to be able to use the HLOOKUP to look up values. Okay, to look up values over here. Oh, sorry, so I can go ahead and delete these ones. Okay, so equal to, so I want to use the same format that we used for the VLOOKUP. All right, now here what we are going to do is that, just like the VLOOKUP, you enter equal to, then HLOOKUP, right, into brackets. Now our lookup value we are looking at is transaction ID. All right, so I'll hit my F4 to lock it. All right, then the table array that I'm looking at, is this table, so I'll select the whole table. So I hope by this time you know how to select the whole table easily. Just select the first cell, hold Control Shift, arrow key to your right and arrow key to your left. Okay, so that's how we select the whole data. All right, Now mine, so I'll log that one also. Then my my row index number. So with the VLOOKUP, we're dealing with column index number. In this instance, we are dealing with row index number. So here also, we are going to use multiple row index. So what we are going to do is that we use our curly brackets. Now, maybe someone might ask why the curly bracket and not enter the column index number straight ahead. So let's see what happens. So my date is in row 2, comma 3, comma. So you can see that immediately I introduce the comma, all right, after the 2, it's seen that we've entered the whole row index number. So if you are dealing with multiple ones, kindly remember to always bring the curly brackets. Okay. So here we can use, so our date is in column 2, as you can see it over here. So 2, customer 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, sorry, 8, 9. All right. I hope by this time you understand why we use 2 to 9. So 2 for the row index number for date, 3 for customer, 4 for region, 5 for product, and so forth and so on. So I can go ahead and introduce my comma. I want an exact match, so I enter 0, or better still false. All right, and I hit enter. Immediately I hit enter, I can see that I get the lookup value for that transaction. All right, so over here I have my drop down list. So you can see that the drop down list is not working over here because I just copied it from that side here. So what I can do is that I can deactivate this data validation over here. So in doing that, I hold my Alt AVV, I get my data validation over here, then I change it to any value over here. Okay. Or better still, I can go ahead and use the list that I used in that other VLOOKUP. So over here, I can go ahead and enter. Let's say I want to look at maybe 50. You can see that the data changes. So if you're looking for a specific transaction, all you need to do is that if you have this in place, you just enter the transaction ID and you are good to go. All right. Now, the next one we are looking at is the XLOOKUP. So all these are the lookup functions, all right? The XLOOKUP. Now, the XLOOKUP, what it does is that unlike the VLOOKUP and the HLOOKUP, where with the VLOOKUP, you are looking at, let's say, data horizontally, and also have to make sure that the lookup value is always the first column of the table range. And with the VLOOKUP, so with the HLOOKUP, we always have to make sure that the lookup value is in the first row of the table range. In the XLOOKUP, it's very flexible in the sense that you can select any row or column within the table array and it works perfectly. Okay, so I think most people even prefer the XLOOKUP to the HLOOKUP and the VLOOKUP, comparing their pros and cons. Okay, so over here too, we are just going to use the same data to work with the XLOOKUP. So I come over here and copy this over here. Sorry. All right, and paste it over here. So let me paste it as values. All right. So over here, what I'm going to do is that, all right, so I just pasted the formatting. So I'll just go ahead and enter. So this is my transaction ID. Then I fill it accordingly. Now over here too, just like the data validation, you can just go ahead and create a data validation just like we did. All right. So with mine, I'm not going to do it to save time. So I'm just going to come here and copy. All right, I'll just copy over here and paste it. All right. So my data validation has been applied over here. Now using the XLOOKUP, all right, as always, our formula syntax equal to an XLOOKUP. Okay. Now the XLOOKUP, it searches a range or an array for a match and return the corresponding item from a second range or array. By default, an exact match is used. Okay, so you take note of that. So with this one into bracket, now my lookup value always the same. Then I lock it with L4. Then my lookup array. All right. So my lookup array, where am I looking at? So I'm looking at the transaction ID. All right. Then I lock it. I lock that one also. Then my return array. So what do I want it to return? So here I want it to return all these values, all right, or all these columns, then I also log that one. Then I can go ahead and close it because the default is an exact match, all right. Or better still, now what happens if that value is not found? So maybe you can maybe enter maybe not found, or let's say any. So better still, let's leave it blank. So we just apply another comma, then we just use 0 for exact match and we hit enter. And immediately we hit enter, you can see that we have the values over here. If I change this to, let's say, T86, you can also see how that one also works. All right, so that one also works fine. Now another function that I want us to look at is the get function. I don't know if those using Excel 2019, I don't know whether you have that. I don't know whether you have that function in your Excel, the get function, because I think I'm aware that function like, let's say, the pivot by function is in Excel 2021 and Office 365. All right. Okay. So with the get function, that one is also a lookup function that we can also look at. But that one is also very powerful, just like the XLOOKUP. That's why I added it to our lesson. So with that one, using the same format over here. Okay. Using the same format over here. Okay. All right. So using the same format over here. Now, if we want to use the get function, as always, we have to get the lookup value, which is the transaction ID. That's the unique ID for all the data or for every data. All right. Now, what we are going to do is that we enter our equal to, then dget. All right. And what the dget function does is that it extracts from a database a single record that matches the conditions that we specify. All right. So with this one, we give it a condition. Then based on that condition, the dget function extracts that record for us. So just like the XLOOKUP and the other lookup function into brackets. Now here, the first thing we select is our database. All right. So unlike the other function where we have to we have to select the lookup value. Here we select the database. All right. Then I log the database. All right, comma. Now the field I'm looking at is what? The date. Right. I'm looking at the date field. Now in this formula also, absolute referencing is very important, because after doing the formula for that of the date, there is no need of doing the same for all these formulas, just to save time. So here I'm going to log the row. So I'll introduce a dollar sign in front of the 2, or better still, I can hit on my F4 twice. Then I get my field, comma. Then the criteria, I want the criteria to be based on the transaction ID, right? So I'll select this, that's the criteria, and I log the criteria also. So the get function equal to dget, then you select the database, right? The database, that's very important. Then your field comes, all right? So my database over here, then my field comes, right? So the field, that's the date, then my criteria, that'll be the transaction ID. And I can go ahead and close it, and I hit enter. Oh, sorry, I'm getting an error. Okay. Okay, what might be wrong? Okay, so equal to dget into brackets my database, then I lock my database with F4. Then I select my criteria, my field. All right, so this is my field. Okay, then my criteria, select my criteria. Oh, it has to work. What's wrong? Okay. Okay. Oh, okay. So I think I'm having an issue with this. So I'll look at that and come back again. All right. So the dget, that's also one of the functions. So we'll come back to that one also. All right. So I think looking at the data over here, we also look at some basic charts. Okay. So I'm trying to figure out the error I'm getting for the dget function, then we'll look at that one again. All right. So when you look at the charts also, there are some basic charts in Excel that we'll be looking at. Okay. Now these basic charts we'll be looking at, let's say from line charts, from pie charts, and let's say some bar charts and histogram. Now these charts are very important because these charts provides a visualization for a large data set, and from these charts we can make informed decisions out of it. All right, we can make informed decisions out of it. Now when we have a chart, okay, so before we come back, let me show you something. So let's say with these data, okay, this stock data that we have over here, we let's say the trend, all right, the trend of, let's say, the prices for the stocks, and look at line chart to do that. So basically with the charts, it's very important for us to know what each chart is very good at doing. So let's say if you want to look at let's say line chart, then maybe we are looking at trends within a data. So with this we can look at the trends for the stock prices, or better still, we can also look at the trends for, let's say, sales within this data. Okay, exactly. Now when it comes to the basic charts, the first thing we are going to do, we are going to use these data, but it will be very important for us to also look at um, pivot tables, so that from the tables that we will get, the simplified or the summary tables that we will get, then we can use those one to draft our charts. Okay, so we take note of that. Please, any question up to this point? Please, if you have any question, kindly drop it in the chat so that it will be addressed accordingly. So any questions? So let me just give us let's say some 2 minutes for questions. So you can just drop the question in the chat, then I can take it from there. So any question? Any question on what we've been doing so far? Okay. So if there is no question, then we also look at um, pivot tables and the pivot by a function. Okay. Then we use the pivot table to provide a summary data for this data set we have over here. Then from there we can use those summary data to draft charts. Okay. So I think with our lesson we are looking at 2 hours, so and we've now done almost 1 hour 38 minutes. So 1 hour 38 minutes. So we look at that. Let's say for some 20 minutes, then we can also open the floor for more questions if possible. Okay. All right. So with this data over here, all right, if you want to create, let's say, a pivot table, all right, we want to group, we want to look at, let's say, um, the various business units, let's say the sales for various business units, all right, then that one, the pivot table is one chart that's very useful in that sense. Okay, so what that does is that the first thing we are going to do is to select our data. To select the data, we use Control A, just like we know in Microsoft Word. All right, then we go to Insert. Right, now when we come to Insert, Excel has the option that can recommend pivot tables to us, or better still, we can go ahead and develop our own pivot table. So in this instance, I want to build our own pivot table. All right, so I hit on build pivot table, and we want to build it in a new worksheet. So we select OK. All right, so here we want to build a new worksheet, and we are looking at business units. All right, we are looking at business units. So with the business units, we have 3 of them. So I want the business unit to me, let's say, be on the row. All right, so you can see that we are building it over here. You see the step by step over here. All right, then let's say we want to look at the account. All right, so with the account, I want to look at it in the column section. All right, okay. So even with the year, so let me just put the business unit with the filter, then let's put the accounts over here on the rows. so that as we go, we can filter them based on the business unit, being it software business unit or the other business unit. Then we can go ahead and use the year for the columns. All right, so you can see how we are building it over here, step by step over here. All right, then the next thing we can do is to use the total figure for the various years. All right, now one thing that our data is lacking is that we don't have a total figure for all the months. So we can come back to our data and compute the total. So total that will be equal to sum into brackets, then this data. Okay, then I can close it and hit enter. Then I can bring a drop down over here. Okay. So back to our pivot tables. Okay. So we come to our table, we select all our data, then we insert the pivot tables. We insert the pivot table, then we start the build. So my business unit will be on the filters so that I can filter the data based on the business unit. All right. Then I'll have my years on the column, my accounts on the row, then the values will be the total. Okay, so you can see a very nice pivot table over here. All right, okay, so I can go ahead and close it now. So these values we are seeing over here is based on the, or is for the business units. All right, so this is all the business units. So I can go ahead and filter it over here to, let's say, advertising, and hit OK. All right, now with this pivot table over here, right, we can go ahead and maybe compute, or let's say build certain charts from it. So the first thing we can build is we can build a pie chart or a bar chart to compare the various expenses for each year. So 2012, 2013, 2014, we can build a pie chart. Or better still, we can even build a bar chart to compute, let's say, the sales value. So to compute these values over the years. All right. So we take note of that one also. So the first chart that we'll be looking at the line chart. All right, so we start with the line chart, then move on to a bar chart. Then from there we can also look at the the bar chart, the pie chart, and the line chart. Then maybe we look at the last point on our plate today, which will be basic AI in Excel. Okay, so back to our data now with the line chart. Okay, I'm going to use the stock data because we want to, let's say, look at the trend within these data. Now I want to compute a line chart for, let's say, MTN shares, all right, from February, so 2nd January 2020 to 31st December 2024. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select these data over here, all right. So I'll select the dates and the MTN stock prices. Then you can see down over here, all right, I can hit on it to get a quick analysis for the charts. Or better still, I can come to insert and I go to recommended charts. All right. Now, when I go to all charts and come to line, you can see that we have a line chart over here that we can insert. Immediately we click on it and we hit OK. Right. We have a line chart for MTN. All right. So you can go ahead and open it like this. Now, one thing we can see is that just looking at this line chart, right, we can even make or even deduce some insights from it. All right, unlike just looking through all these data, which is very tall. Okay, so from these data we can see that there were some price hikes during these periods. All right, and by just looking at this we can even see the growth. All right, the growth of the shares. Okay, so that's how we can also use line charts. Now we can build or we can create multiple line charts within a diagram. So let's say within one diagram we can go ahead and create a line chart for all the data over here. All right, for all these data over here. All right, so you can go ahead and create for all these data over here, and you can see how that one also looks like, although it's not very nice, but you can see all the lines on the chart. right? Now, looking at a line chart like that, that's why mostly it's also very important to learn other ways of building charts like interactive charts, where you can, let's say, build checkboxes to control the lines over here, right? So that you know when and which line to view at a specific time. So I think even on this channel that we are having our live, we have a video on building interactive line charts. You can look at that one also. It's very, very educative. All right. So this is how we build line charts. Okay. So line charts. Now the next one or the next chart we'll be looking at will be let's say a bar chart. Okay. So with a bar chart here, what I'm looking at is that I'm looking at the various expenses over here, right? So I'm looking at the expense. I want to look at, okay, which expense or which year did we have a certain amount of expense. All right. So in 2012, what was the expense that or what did we spend most of our money on? All right. So here I'm looking at um, commission expense, marketing expense, R&D, payroll expense, R&D, and I also look at um, software, and I'll look at travel and entertainment expense. Okay, and I can look at their values. I can go ahead and look at their values. All right, so we have these values over here. Oh, I think, let me see, payroll. Okay, so my marketing expenses, this, not that. Then my payroll expense, my R&D is 11 million. Then I have hardware expense 20 million. Then this is 2 million. All right. So with this, I want to create a bar chart for it, or maybe or possibly a pie chart for it. So with the charting, all you need to know is select your data, then you go to insert. Then you can go ahead and insert the chart you want. Okay. So over here, let me change this one to text. Okay. So I can go ahead and select this data that I've put from this, and I can go ahead and select charts over here. All right. Then I go to more. Now, when I come to more, you can see there are several recommended charts over here that I can use, but specifically, maybe I want to use a pie chart over here. So I can use this pie chart, which is a 2D pie chart, or I can use this, which is a 3D pie chart. Okay. All right. Then immediately you select that, you click on it, and you can hit OK. Then you get a pie chart for that also. All right. Then there are various formatting that you can also do with it, and with that, you just have to right click, then you go to format chart area. All right, and you can get this where you can make a lot of formatting options over here. Okay, so that's how we can also insert a pie chart into or for our data. If you want to also go ahead and insert a bar chart, we can also do same. Go to bar charts. So here, all chart, then we go to bar. All right, then we can go ahead and insert either these bar charts over here, horizontal bar charts over here, or let's say a column chart, that's a vertical bar chart over here, right? So with this one, that's how we can also go ahead with that one. So these are just basic charts that we can look at when it comes to Excel. Okay. Now I think it's please, is there any question so far? Okay, no question so far. So the last thing we'll be looking at is basic AI in Excel. All right, so we want to look at how we can also use AI in Excel. Now, when it comes to using AI in Excel, okay, currently I think Microsoft have introduced one powerful AI that we can always use to work faster, that can help us in data visualization. And even if we are working with data that, let's say, we don't remember the appropriate formula to use, then we can resort to this AI that we have, and this AI will help us to understand a formula if we don't understand, or let's say it can also help us to create formulas that maybe we might not even know how to do so. So with this one, the AI that we are going to look at is what we call the um the Copilot. That's the Microsoft Copilot over here. All right. So with this one, I think if you are using, I don't know the Excel version you are using, but if you're using Microsoft 365 and you're using the original version, you should have access to that AI or the Copilot. All right. So the first thing we are going to do with the Copilot, in our first instance, what we did was that we created various or the quarters for this data. All right. So just like we mentioned earlier, we know quarter one is from January to March, quarter two, April to May, and so forth and so on. Now, right now, what we are doing is we want to use the AI. Can do is I can select the data. Okay, it's over here. Or better still, I can just okay. Let me okay. So or better still, I can just launch my Copilot over here. All right, which is a Microsoft Copilot or AI. Okay, so let me turn on my autosave. So it says I only work with files that have autosave turned on. So I'll do that. We can start working with it. So this is how that one works. So what you want, let's say, the Copilot to help you with. All right. So you can see that it's giving us a lot of suggestions over. So what I want to do is that maybe we want to compute the quarters that we did over here. All right. And over here, we did it manually by using the S and over here the basic Excel function. That's the sum. So within this data, what I'm going to do is I can ask Copilot to assist me in the quarters for the various accounts. Maybe I can just, so all you need to do is to type in the prompt. So you give it, let's say, the right prompt, then you get the right answer. So whatever you feed, so if you feed in a good prompt, you get a good output, and you feed in a bad prompt, you take note of that one also. So just like our well-known AIs like the DeepSeek and the ChatGPT, you know that whatever we enter, that the sort of outcome we get is based on what we feed the AI with. So here I want to access to compute, let's say, the quarters for the data, and let's see what it does. So if even we enter, let's say, a prompt that it doesn't understand, it gives us the option to go ahead and modify the prompt. So here's generating formula column suggestion for AI to Q289. So that's our data range. Okay. So with this one, to be able to use it, we make sure we have our internet access working. So we can see over here that it says that so looking at AI to Q, here are four formula columns to review and insert in column R. All right, RST. So it will insert what the AI is trying to do is to insert the quarters over here for us here in QRST over here. Okay, so you can see it has given us a suggestion over here, and over here it has created the columns over here with the quarters that we can just go ahead and insert. So if we want these quarters, we just come here and insert the column. So immediately we insert the column, you can see that without typing even one formula, the Copilot has entered all these, created all these columns for us for Q1, Q2, Q3, right? Then if we select, we can see the formula that the Copilot used. Okay, so you can see that it used this, it added these three for the Q1. So for Q4, so it added October, November, December, which is very right. Okay, so that's how the Copilot can also help us. Additionally, it can also even give us insight into our data. All right. So for example, it's giving us a suggestion over here that show data insight. I can just click on it for it to give me, let's say, some insight within my data. Okay. Now, while we wait, we can just compare the quarters that it computed for us. So the first quarter, okay. All right, so we've gotten an output over here. It says the data insights shows the sum of Q4 by year. For example, in 2012, the sum of Q4 is this, and in 2023. So you can see data. We can see the table above for more details, and that will be, you can see the various computations that the AI has done over here for us. All right. So you just give us a line chart and give us a little insight about it. Okay. So that's how we can also use the Copilot. But the Copilot can do more things apart from just this. So if you can just input a prompt. So it can even help us with creating, let's say, logical functions. Let's say if you want to use the if function, the lookup function, and other functions, we can just enter a prompt over here and it will assist us with that also. Okay. So I think, is there any question? If there isn't any question, then I think our time is fast spent. That's 1 hour 56 minutes. Then maybe we can also call it a day if there is no question. But I think we have about 4 minutes left, so I'll just ask if there is any question or anything I have to repeat again if you don't understand anything. So kindly let me know if there is anything you want me to repeat. Please, is there any? Okay, so I'm seeing no, please, no. Okay, so since there is no any, I think we already have this data with you, so you can just take time. If there is anything you don't understand, you can just watch the video again anytime, and you can reach out to us, or you can reach out to me, even on the comment section after the video has ended, and we'll be very happy to also assist you. Now we also have there are other videos on this YouTube channel. I don't know whether you've gone through before joining this live, that you can look at and also upgrade yourself with other functions that we've looked at. I think we mentioned that we'll be looking at other sorting and filtering data functions, but looking at our time, I think we'll just leave that one. Just like we worked with the pivot table, we have a video on slices, inserting slices, which is also a data filtering tool that you can look at. Okay. So if there is no question, okay, we have less than 2 minutes, so I'll just wait for 2 minutes. And if there is any question, you can just go ahead and ask. If not, then I'll thank you very much for joining today. And the live video will be here. It won't be off, so you can just come back anytime and watch it. And if there is anything, you can just drop your comment so that we can look at it for you. Okay, no question. All right, so I'd like to thank you very much for having me here and for giving me this opportunity to speak with you guys. Have a nice evening. Thank you very much, and bye bye.